Next on Worcester News tonight, the high number of ticks this season causing one local organization to cancel activities outside. Plus, a West Boylston family is lucky to be alive tonight after a car crashes into their home. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brittany Schaefer. A trip in the woods left a local man with more than 24 ticks on his body. Derek LaRange says he was at the Wachusett Reservoir Wednesday and walked out covered in the parasites. Tonight, an event there was forced to be canceled. Our Cam Jandro spoke to LaRange tonight. He joins us live now with the details. Cam?
Yeah, Brittany, just yesterday, the reservoir was expecting to host dozens of people for a nature walk this evening, but that obviously fell through because Derek LaRange walked out covered in 26 ticks. He says it was one of the weirdest things he's ever had happen to him.
I came out with about 26 ticks on me.
Derek LaRange took a walk through the Wachusett Reservoir. An hour later, he was covered head to toe in ticks.
They were mostly crawling on my clothing, so they were easy to spot outside, but by the time I got home, I had already found some that were crawling on my legs and a couple that were under my shirt.
LaRange and the Worcester Tree Initiative were scheduled to host a nature walk along the reservoir Thursday. After checking the route the night before, the number of ticks forced the organization to cancel.
I did find a few deer ticks, and so we don't want to have anybody, go on the walk and not check themselves or not check themselves as thoroughly as they need to and end up having one embedded that transmits a disease.
Experts say tick population is up 15% this year. LaRange believes the reservoir's condition is what led to the large amount of ticks.
I think the landscape there, being that there's more high grass and more sprouts coming off of stumps, contributed to there being such a high number of ticks there.
A self-proclaimed nature lover, LaRange says he's in the woods on a regular basis, but having more than 24 ticks on him was not something he'd ever expect.
This was exceptional. I've never actually had more than 4 or 5 ticks on me at a go. It's really a new experience to have that many on me.
Now, LaRange says it was a tough night of sleep because he was constantly waking up worried he may have missed some of the ticks. As for now, the walk is canceled, but it could happen later this year once tick season is over. Brittany?
Scary stuff. Thanks, Cam. Now to a serious crash in Rutland. One driver had to be med-flighted to the hospital. The crash so severe it closed the busy roadway for several hours. And as our Rosalind Flaherty explains, this isn't the first serious crash on this stretch of road.
This blue sedan is almost unrecognizable after a serious two-car crash on Route 122A in Rutland. Police say its driver is in critical condition. The vehicle was left resting on top of a guardrail. The other, an SUV, had heavy front-end damage.
Preliminary investigation, one of the vehicles may have left the travel lane, hit the second vehicle head-on.
Rutland Police Chief Nick Monaco says they used extricating equipment to free one of the victims. He says the driver of the sedan, a 27-year-old man, was med-flighted to the hospital. The other driver, a 63-year-old man, was also hospitalized. Dylan Orzalak says his co-workers heard the crash and rushed to help.
Called 911, tried to evaluate the situation, kind of block traffic. They're pretty shooken up about it.
People who live and work nearby say this stretch of the road is difficult and crashes happen often.
2 weeks ago, there was another bad accident like this up here. The problem is everyone's trying to come through here at 50, 60 miles an hour with a 45-mile-an-hour zone.
Real bad intersection. People going too fast.
Police say it's unclear if speed was a factor in this crash, but Chief Monaco says they have had issues here before.
This area we do get kind of a significant amount of accidents with cars coming out of the side streets, and the speed limit here is 45, and cars do tend to go a little fast.
Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
Worcester police and fire on scene of a hazmat situation Thursday afternoon after chemicals were found on railroad tracks. Crews were on scene for several hours trying to determine what the chemicals were. The bottles were found near Brooks and West Boylston streets. Worcester Fire Department says the public did not face any danger and they had to take the proper precautions.
We decided that we needed to call in the state hazmat team, so we've issued a Tier 1 hazmat. Hazmat team is on scene working with the Worcester Fire Department, Worcester Police, and the Mass State Police. We don't believe that there's any risk to the public right now.
All these police cars, hazmat, fire engines, people up on the tracks. I had no idea what was going on.
There is no word as to what chemicals were on scene. Worcester Fire says they confiscated the bottles and will dispose of them. 4 people are taken to the hospital when a car crashes into a home. West Boylston police were following the car and says it was traveling at high speeds just before the crash overnight. The people who live in the home say they're lucky to be alive. Our Chandler Walsh spoke to the homeowner today. She has the details.
The Creech family looks at the gaping hole in their West Boylston home. A car slammed into their basement late Wednesday night.
My first thought was, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad. I have nowhere to turn to.
Police say the car was traveling over 75 miles an hour when they began following it. An officer later observed the car going around 100 when it tried to pull into a driveway and lost control. Neighbors say it crashed into one home's fence, through a front lawn, and into the Creech's home. DeAndre Creech says he had just put his 3 boys to sleep when he heard the car and looked out to a startling scene.
I'm like, wow, what happened? I come down and look out my window, and I can see the police gun out, people lying on the floor, blood all over the place.
Neighbor Carol Vogt's property is where the car first came crashing through. A large chunk of her wooden fence ended up in her second-floor bedroom window, just feet from where she was standing.
All of a sudden, it was like an explosion went off. I didn't know. I first thought was somebody was shooting into the window. Because the glass had shattered.
Vogt says the street was filled with police and ambulances from several towns.
It was just unbelievable. And I still feel like I'm shaking from the incident.
Meanwhile, Creech says his family needs to find a new place to live for a while. He says inside the walls are cracking and he doesn't know how much repairs will cost, but says the important thing is his family is safe.
It has to be searched for, structural integrity. I can't stay in my own house. They said it can be anywhere for a couple weeks to a couple months, so I'm out of luck.
Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.
The Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce hosting their 2018 Business Awards Thursday night. The event highlighted businesses in the area making a big impact on the city's economy. Chamber President Tim Murray says recently Worcester has been transforming, and these businesses are a big reason why.
The Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce, we run about 200 events a year, but this is one of my favorites. We kind of recognize the businesses that are kind of the heart and soul of our chamber, including Q Look Bridal, which started out with 2,000 square feet, now 10,000 square feet over at Webster Square, 4 employees to 16.
4 businesses were given the Silver Hammer Award. It is given to those who have repurposed and revitalized an old section of town. The Worcester Railers, partnered with Niche Hospitality, were one of the recipients.
Obviously, it wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for Cliff and and his investment in the property. But it means a lot to kind of stand up here in front of everybody and know that you did something good with a building that was not going to be used for anything else if we didn't do it.
The event took place at the Mercantile Center. The Chamber says the newly renovated downtown property showcases the best of Worcester. The first chairman of the board of the Hanover Insurance Group is stepping away from the business he helped grow. Michael Angelini joined the Hanover's board of directors in 1995, and now almost 25 years later, he has to say goodbye. The company's governance guidelines don't allow directors to continue past 75 years old. When he first started, the company was struggling. Today, he says the property and casualty insurance company has expanded to a national leader.
Course of time, largely under Fred Eppinger's stewardship, as the company became profitable and made money, it reinvested that money in the business operations of the company, and right now under Jack Roach's leadership, it's doing very, very well. Yeah, sure I miss it, but you miss a lot of things in life, but you move on. So life's a series of chapters, and the good news is the book isn't finished.
Angelini says he will still be keeping himself busy practicing law as the chairman of Bowditch and Dewey and is on the board of various private organizations. A new behavioral health wing at St. Vincent Hospital will help serve patients suffering from addiction and any type of mental illness. The hospital opened the new wing Thursday. It's part of the emergency department and includes 8 beds. Doctors say it's a much quieter space for people to go if they're suffering from mental illness. The hospital offers 24-hour access to emergency mental evaluations and substance abuse care and says it's common to see more than a dozen patients for behavioral health concerns each morning.
This is going to be a really great place for people whose lives are spinning out of control related to addiction or mental illness to recover their stability and reclaim their dignity and rebuild their lives.
Chief of Psychiatry Kenneth Hetzler says about 50% of the country's population will have an addictive or psychiatric disorder at some point in their lifetime.